Welcome back to the deep dive. We are stepping right into the middle of a heavyweight bout today.
Yeah, it really is a fork in the road for the whole industry.
Right. And I know usually when people talk about tech wars, they're talking about, market cap or stock prices or whose CEO gave the snarkiest interview.
Oh, definitely. The usual drama.
Exactly. But this is different. This isn't just about which company has the cooler chatbot or the flashier demo video. We are looking at a fundamental clash of philosophies that is going to, it's going to define how every single one of us interacts with the internet for the next decade.
I don't think we've seen a divergence this sharp in the tech industry since maybe the early days of, open web versus walled gardens. We're seeing two completely different visions of what intelligence actually means.
Yeah, in the red corner, we have the behemoth of data, the king of the cloud, Google Gemini. And in the blue corner, playing a very, very different game, we have Apple Intelligence.
Right.
Now, the narrative out there on social media right now is that this is a war of specs. Who has the bigger brain? Who can process more tokens? But we dug into a pretty massive stack of research for this one.
A really fascinating stack, actually.
Yeah, we have a deep technical breakdown from the DEV community, some incredibly scathing internal reports from Computer World, and a really fascinating academic paper from Southern Illinois University. And what we found is that the specs are just a distraction.
The specs are absolutely the symptom, not the cause. What we're really looking at is a battle between invisible, privacy-first utility and massive cloud-native power. And honestly, the trade-offs are much more significant than just which one answers my question faster.
Right. It's about where your data lives.
Exactly. Where it lives, who owns your thoughts, and how much of your internal life you're willing to trade for convenience.
And we have a twist coming up later that I honestly didn't see coming. You know me, I love a good unintended consequence.
Oh, the Southern Illinois paper.
Yes. There is some new research suggesting that Apple's AI, specifically those boring little writing tools that polish your emails, might accidentally be one of the most powerful privacy shields we have against emotional surveillance.
That was the absolute highlight of the research to me. It turns out that being boring, or at least having an AI make you sound boring, might be a superpower in the age of algorithmic data mining. We'll get into the mechanics of that later, but it's a total game changer.
It really is. But before we get to the accidental privacy shield, we have to set the stage with the drama.
And there is plenty of it.
So much. We're hearing reports of internal chaos at Apple, suggestions that they are years behind, and that the shiny marketing might be hiding some real existential struggles inside Cupertino. So let's unpack this properly.
Let's do it.
We've got this technical breakdown from the DEV community that really sets the scene. Let's start with the giant in the room, Google Gemini. What is the core philosophy there? Because it feels like they're just throwing, raw horsepower at the problem.
They are, but it's very calculated horsepower. If we look at the analysis from the DEV community, Google Gemini is described as cloud native and model first.
Okay.
This is AI built on the Gemini 1.5 Pro series, and the key word here really is scale. Google is leveraging its massive infrastructure. We're talking acres and acres of data centers filled with those high-end GPUs to create a general-purpose multimodal model.
Wait, hold on. General purpose multimodal model. That sounds like marketing bingo. Translate that for me.
Fair enough. So multimodal just means it doesn't only read text, it natively understands text, images, audio, video, and code all at the exact same time.
All at once.
Right. It can watch a movie and read the script simultaneously and understand how they relate to each other. But the cloud native part is the real kicker here. It means the brain of this thing is so massive, it literally cannot fit on a device. It has to live in the cloud.
And that brings us to the context window. The source highlights a statistic that kind of blew my mind. Gemini 1.5 Pro boasts a context window of up to 1 million tokens in streaming scenarios.
It's wild.
Now, I know tokens are roughly parts of words, but for someone listening who isn't an AI engineer, what does 1 million tokens actually mean in practice? Is that like a really long book?
It's way more than a book. Think of the context window as the AI's short-term working memory. It's the, let's say, the desk space it has to lay out documents before it answers your question.
Okay, desk space.
Most early models, like the early GPTs, had a desk the size of a Post-it note. They could look at a few paragraphs at a time. With 1 million tokens, you have a desk the size of a football field.
A football field of data.
Literally. You can feed it entire code repositories, hours and hours of video transcripts, or a stack of PDFs a mile high. And because it has that massive memory, it can reason across all of that information simultaneously. It can find a needle in a haystack made of a million other needles.
So it just eats data for breakfast.
It devours it. And because it's API first, as the DEV community article points out, it's designed for developers to build on top of. So if you're a startup in Berlin or a developer in San Francisco, you don't build your own brain. You just plug into Gemini's brain via the internet.
Which sounds great. I mean, who doesn't want a super brain on tap?
Yeah.
But there is a catch, right? Because that football field isn't in my pocket. It's in a Google data center somewhere.
Precisely. And that is the architectural cost. For Gemini to work, your data must leave your device. It has to travel through the internet, land on a Google server, get processed by those massive energy-hungry chips, and then the answer is sent back to you.
So every single time I ask it to analyze a document, I am essentially handing that document over to Google, even if just for a moment.
Right. And while Google has enterprise privacy guarantees and all of that, the architecture itself is centralized. It requires a constant high-speed connection to the mothership.
Which brings us to the other side of the ring, Apple. The DEV community breakdown describes Apple Intelligence as privacy-centric and embedded. And reading through this, it feels like they are almost allergic to the cloud.
Yeah.
Like they are actively trying to do everything the hard way.
They are certainly doing it the hard way, but they would argue it's the only way that actually respects the user. Apple's approach is fundamentally different. They aren't trying to build a chatbot that knows everything about the universe. They are building an invisible AI layer that is deeply integrated into the operating system itself, iOS, iPadOS, macOS.
So instead of going to a website like opening a browser to talk to a superbrain, the AI is just woven into the apps I already use.
Exactly. It's inside Mail, it's inside Notes, it's inside Siri. But the crucial difference is the engine powering it. It relies on on-device inference. They're relying on their own Apple silicon chips, the A17 Pro and the new iPhones, the M-series chips in the Macs, to run these models locally on your hardware.
Okay, but let's be real here. A phone chip, even a really expensive one like the A17 Pro, is not a data center.
No, definitely not.
It's running on a battery. It fits in the palm of my hand. How can it possibly compete with Google's acres of servers?
In terms of raw power, it can't. That's just a physics problem. A phone has thermal limits. If it works too hard, it literally burns your hand. It has battery limits. So Apple has to use smaller, more efficient models. They are what we call distilled models. They aren't as smart, generally speaking, as the giant cloud brains.
So the trade-off is raw intelligence for privacy.
Intelligence and latency. The source mentions predictable latency as a major benefit for Apple. Because you aren't waiting for a round trip to a server farm in Oregon, tasks like summarize this email or find that photo of my cat happen right there instantly on the device. It feels much snappier for those small daily tasks.
And it has limited extensibility, right? The DEV article talked about how developers have to use SiraKit or App Intents instead of just hooking up to a raw API.
Yes, exactly. Apple controls the ecosystem tightly. You can't just build whatever rogue agent you want. You have to play by Apple's rules, which makes it safer but much less flexible than Google's open playground.
But what happens when I ask Siri to do something that is too big? Say I want to plan a 5-day itinerary for Tokyo, cross-referencing my emails and a massive travel guide. My phone is going to choke on that, isn't it?
It likely would. And that is where Apple's private cloud compute comes in. It's their escape hatch.
Escape hatch.
Think of it as a tiered system. First, the phone tries to do the task itself. If it's too heavy, it routes it to this private cloud. But, and this is a massive distinction in the architecture, the source emphasizes that this infrastructure is designed from the ground up for verifiable privacy. It's completely unlike standard hyperscaler clouds.
How is it different from Google's cloud? A cloud is a cloud, isn't it? Just someone else's computer?
Not necessarily. Google's cloud is largely designed for data retention and continuous training. They want to learn from the interactions to make their core model smarter over time. Apple's private cloud compute is designed to be stateless.
Stateless meaning it doesn't remember anything.
Exactly. It processes the data to get you your answer, and then it essentially wipes its memory. It's built so that even Apple's own system administrators theoretically cannot see the data being processed.
Okay.
The code is actually audited by third parties.
So it's like a blindfolded genius in a locked room. You slide a piece of paper under the door, they solve the complex math problem, slide it back, and then immediately shred the paper.
That's a perfect analogy. Whereas Google is more like a genius who reads your paper, memorizes the contents, adds it to their personal library, and then gives you the answer.
Okay, so we have the battlefield set. If you want a contextual copilot that can read a whole library in seconds and works everywhere, even on a cheap laptop via the web, you want Google Gemini.
Right.
But if you want invisible AI that lives on your phone, fades into the UX, and promises not to leak your data, you want Apple.
That is the architectural battle in a nutshell. On-device privacy versus cloud-native scale.
But in these stories, having a noble architecture is one thing. Actually shipping it and making it work is another. And reading this report from Computer World, it sounds like things inside Apple are, well, messy is being polite.
Messy is very polite. The headline itself is quite striking. It literally says, "Drama at Apple as AI failures cause heads to roll."
Heads rolling is never good for business. But I have to play devil's advocate here. We're talking about Apple, a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, essentially unlimited resources. How can they be failing? Is this just tech media sensationalism?
It's easy to dismiss it as that, but when you strip away the cash and look at the engineering reality Computer World is describing, it actually makes a lot of sense. The report cites a Bloomberg analysis claiming Apple remains years behind its competition. And that's not just about a lack of money, it's about culture.
Culture? How so?
Think about it. For the last 15 years, what has Apple optimized for? Perfection, curation, total control over the user experience. They release features only when they are polished to an absolute shine.
Right. It just works philosophy.
Exactly. But generative AI, the core technology powering things like ChatGPT and Gemini, is fundamentally chaotic. It hallucinates. It makes things up. It's probabilistic, not deterministic. You can't polish a hallucination perfectly. So Apple's entire engineering philosophy is clashing violently with the nature of this new technology.
So they're trying to use a scalpel to fight a sledgehammer war.
And they were caught napping. The source suggests that the generative AI boom, the sudden explosion of ChatGPT, caught Apple management completely by surprise. The report says they were moving at a more deliberate pace, which is really just corporate speak for "we didn't see this coming at all."
The report mentions specific casualties of this scramble, too.
Yeah.
The most shocking one to me was Siri. I mean, Siri has been the punchline of AI jokes for a decade.
Yeah.
We all know I'm sorry, I found this on the web response.
And we all know it too well.
We were all expecting Apple Intelligence to be the moment Siri finally got a real brain transplant.
And yet, the report alleges a crisis so deep that Apple will introduce no major Siri upgrades at WWDC 2025.
Wait, 2025? So we are waiting another full year just to get a Siri that actually understands context.
That's the rumor right now. And if true, it is a massive blow to their timeline. It suggests that the technical hurdles of shrinking these massive models down to run natively on a phone chip are much harder than they initially thought. They can't just download ChatGPT into Siri. They have to rebuild the brain entirely to fit in a much smaller skull.
And the Computer World report doesn't pull punches on the leadership side either. It paints a pretty bleak picture. It mentions weak leadership, conflicting priorities, and flawed decision-making. It really sounds like there are internal factions fighting over the whole direction of the company.
It's the classic innovator's dilemma playing out in real time. You have the old guard who wants to protect the iPhone's legendary battery life and their privacy reputation. And you have the new AI faction saying, "We need more power, we need more data, or we're going to lose the future." And right now, it looks like they are stuck in the middle.
And there is a massive disconnect mentioned between the marketing and the actual engineering, right? Like the marketing team is out there selling this sci-fi future with the Apple Intelligence commercials, and the engineers are looking at the code going, guys, we aren't there yet.
The source specifically calls out the heavy hype thrown at features that just weren't baked yet. And we've seen this as users over the last few months. Features announced in June that don't launch until December or launch with a beta tag slapped on them. It reflects that painful struggle to reconcile the privacy-first philosophy with the sheer processing reality of generative AI.
So Apple might be stumbling. They might be late to the party. They might be fighting a war they aren't fully equipped for. But, and here is where we get to the really fascinating pivot of today's deep dive. Even if they are stumbling into the room, they might have accidentally brought a shield that we desperately need.
Yes. This brings us to the academic study from Southern Illinois University. And this is a total pivot from corporate intrigue to something that affects every single one of us on a deeply personal level.
The paper is titled Evaluating Apple Intelligence's Writing Tools for Privacy, which is hosted on Archive. Now, when I first saw this title, I thought it was going to be another dense paper about encryption protocols or on-device data storage, but it's not. It's about something called emotion inference attacks.
This is a concept listeners really need to wrap their heads around because it's the next frontier of data harvesting. We tend to think of privacy as, don't read my password or don't steal my credit card number.
Or just keep my emails private.
Right. But in the age of LLMs, there is a totally new threat: emotional surveillance.
Break that down for us. What does emotional surveillance actually mean?
It means that bad actors, or let's be honest, just data-hungry ad companies and insurance algorithms, can use powerful AI to scan your text messages, your emails, your social media posts, and build a highly accurate psychological profile of you. They aren't just looking for keywords like buy a car anymore. They are analyzing the underlying sentiment. They can tell if you are angry, sad, desperate, joyful, or manic.
And why is that dangerous? I mean, so what if an ad company knows I'm sad on a Tuesday?
Because if they know you're sad or desperate, they can manipulate you. There is extensive research showing that people in high arousal emotional states, like anger or fear, are significantly more susceptible to misinformation and impulse buying. If an algorithm knows you are furious at your boss, it might dynamically serve you an ad for a predatory loan or a get-rich-quick scheme at the exact moment your defenses are down. It's a massive psychological vulnerability.
Wow. Okay, so the researchers at Southern Illinois University had this brilliant idea. They looked at Apple's new standard writing tools, the ones that pop up on iOS, and ask if you want to rewrite your email to be friendly or professional or concise. And they asked a really simple question. Can these tools act as a mask? Can they scrub the emotion off your text so the spy bots can't read your mood?
It's such a clever premise. They essentially treated Apple Intelligence as a sanitizer. So what they did was they took data sets of highly emotional texts. Specifically, they use the Dare AI emotion dataset and the Daily Dialogue dataset. These are texts clearly labeled by humans as angry, sad, joyful, fearful, and they fed them directly into Apple's rewriting tools.
Testing the specific modes Apple offers. Rewrite, friendly, professional, and concise.
Exactly. Then they took that rewritten, polished text and fed it to the attacker AI models. These were things like BERT, GPT-4o, DeepSeek, and Flan T5. Basically the standard, powerful brains used by companies for sentiment analysis. The goal was to see if the attacker model could still guess the original emotion of the user.
And the findings were stark. The big aha moment here is specifically about the professional and friendly tools. They acted as incredibly effective shields.
Yes, those two were the heavy hitters. Let's look at the data because the numbers are crazy.
Yeah, the study mentions anger specifically, which I found fascinating.
For the anger category, some of the attacker models, like Distilbert, for example, originally had near 100% accuracy. They knew you were mad. There was absolutely no ambiguity. But after running the text through Apple's professional rewrite tool, that accuracy dropped drastically, down to below 20%. In some specific cases, it plummeted down to 16%.
That is a massive drop. You go from being an open book to a locked vault just by highlighting your text and clicking Make Professional.
Exactly. You are essentially encrypting your mood. You're stripping the metadata of your soul out of the text.
But not all the tools worked, right? The study specifically flagged the concise tool as a failure in this regard.
That's a really important distinction for people to understand. The concise tool just shortens the text. It removes the fluff, but it keeps the core intent and, crucially, the tone. The study found that concise had minimal effect on masking emotion. It leaves your emotional fingerprint completely intact, just with fewer words.
So if I yell at someone briefly, I'm still yelling. The AI knows I'm mad.
Correct. But professional fundamentally changes the tone, and by changing the tone, it destroys the emotional data the attackers are looking for.
I love the real-world examples they included in the paper.
Yeah.
We have to read a few of these because they really illustrate what sanitizing actually looks like in practice. It's almost comical how robotic it gets.
Let's do it. These really show the mechanism in action.
Okay, here is an angry text from the original data set. Quote, "It smells like an ashtray in here." You can hear the disgust in that. You can picture the person wrinkling their nose.
And here is the Apple professional rewrite of that exact same text. Quote, "The air quality could be improved."
The air quality could be improved. I mean, wow. It's so clinical. It's completely detached. If I'm a spy bot analyzing that text, I have absolutely no idea the user is furious. I just think they are making a mild, objective observation about HVAC systems.
Here's another one, labeled as sad. The original text is, "I feel like a naughty schoolgirl because I am falling behind." There's so much shame there, vulnerability, and a very specific cultural
And in
reference.
the Apple professional rewrite.
I am experiencing a sense of inadequacy due to my academic progress.
Experiencing a sense of inadequacy. It sounds like an HR memo. The raw emotion is completely scrubbed. The naughty schoolgirl metaphor, which carries a lot of psychological weight for an AI to analyze, is just gone. Erased.
Let's do one more for the joy category. Original text, I get giddy over feeling elegant in a perfectly fitted pencil skirt.
And the rewrite.
I experience a profound sense of elation when donning a pencil skirt that is impeccably tailored to my figure.
It literally sounds like a robot trying to describe human happiness to another robot. I experience a profound sense of elation. Nobody talks like that.
But that is exactly the point. By sounding like a robot, you become invisible to the robots. The study specifically calls this a privacy-enhancing technology, or a PEAT. It actively prevents what they call unintended emotional leakage.
Unintended emotional leakage.
Yeah.
That is a term that's going to stick with me. We leak our emotions all over the internet every single day, and we don't even think twice about it.
We do. And usually we think of these Apple writing tools as just, convenience features. Oh, I want to sound smarter in this email to my boss, or I want to sound nicer to my mother-in-law. But what this academic study proves is that these tools are effectively an adversarial defense mechanism.
Adversarial defense. That sounds like cybersecurity talk.
It is cybersecurity talk. If you are worried about an app analyzing your mental state for targeted advertising, or worse, if you are in a high-stakes environment like corporate litigation or a tense negotiation, running your text through Apple's professional filter is a legitimate security measure. You are sanitizing your digital footprint before it ever leaves the device.
It's interesting, too, that the study notes even the really big, sophisticated models like GPT-4o sometimes struggle to classify the emotions of the original text compared to the specialized BERT models. But the overall trend held true across the board. The Apple tools consistently confused the attackers and lowered accuracy.
Right. It creates this gray zone of neutrality. And in a surveillance economy, neutrality is the best camouflage. It's like the concept of the gray man in espionage, someone who blends into the crowd so perfectly that nobody remembers them. These tools turn your text into the gray man.
So let's try to connect these dots, because we have three very different source materials here that feel like they're crashing into each other to tell a bigger story.
Absolutely. We have the architecture war from the DEV community, Google trying to build a god brain in the cloud that knows everything and processes 1 million tokens, and Apple trying to build a quiet, localized assistant on your phone.
Then we have the crisis from computer world. Apple struggling to make that quiet assistant actually work, falling behind on the raw generative tech and dealing with internal chaos because their culture optimized for perfection instead of probabilistic AI.
But then we have this third element from the SIU paper, the incredible unintentional benefit of Apple's specific limitations.
It really changes how we view success in AI right now, doesn't it? If you look at it purely through the lens of Google Gemini, asking how many tokens, how smart is it, how fast can it code, Apple is failing. They are years behind.
They are. In that specific race, they are bringing a knife to a nuclear war.
But if you look at it through the lens of the user, the actual human being holding the phone who just wants to protect their digital footprint,
then Apple's failure becomes its greatest feature. Apple's struggle to compete on raw generative power might actually reinforce their unique value proposition. They are focusing on tools that modify your content on your device securely. The professional tone tool doesn't need a trillion parameters or a massive data center to work. It just needs to understand style transfer.
and by doing that locally, before the text ever hits the network, you are inherently sanitizing your data. The DEV community article mentioned that Apple's architecture is for environments where privacy is a priority. If you work in healthcare or law, or honestly just have a crazy ex, the professional filter isn't just a fun style choice, it's a critical safety feature.
Whereas with Google Gemini, you are absolutely getting that massive power. You can analyze a whole video, summarize a textbook, write complex code. But you are feeding the beast. You are engaging with a system that thrives on data ingestion. You are explicitly trading privacy for capability.
It really is a tale of constraints. As the DEV community source pointed out so well, the choice isn't necessarily better or worse, it's about alignment with constraints. If I need to process 1 million tokens of video and code, Apple's professional rewrite tool is completely useless to me. I need Gemini. I need the football field desk.
But if I'm sending a sensitive email and I don't want the recipient or the platform hosting the email to know I'm actually seething with rage, Apple gives me a localized tool to hide that instantly.
It's almost ironic. The Computer World Report slams Apple for being so far behind on generative AI. But maybe regenerative AI, rewriting and protecting what we've already produced, is where the immediate practical utility lies for the average person.
It's a very different use case, but a vital one. One is about infinite creation and analysis, which is Google's domain. The other is about mediation and protection, which is becoming Apple's domain.
So to wrap this up, let's look at the current landscape based on everything we've covered. We have Google Gemini standing tall as the cloud-native giant. Massive, all-knowing, eats data, lives in a server farm, moves incredibly fast.
And we have Apple Intelligence as the embedded privacy layer. Currently a bit chaotic internally, dealing with delays and trying to figure out how to squeeze a powerful brain into a device that runs on a battery.
But crucially, we also have this entirely new understanding of Apple's tools as a privacy condom for our emotions.
That is certainly a vivid way to put it.
I mean, it fits perfectly. It scrubs the anger and sadness so effectively that these highly sophisticated AI models can't catch anything. It protects you from the consequences of your own raw humanity.
It does, but stepping back, it raises a really interesting and maybe slightly unsettling final question for us to chew on.
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about nonstop since reading that SIU study. We spend so much time worrying about AI generating fake emotions, right? Chatbots pretending to love us, or scammers using AI to mimic our family members' voices to trick us. But we rarely think about AI reading our real emotions.
And if the best defense against that surveillance is to proactively use tools that strip our language of its emotion. I mean, if we all start using professional mode to hide our true feelings from the advertising algorithms.
Do we risk sanitizing our communication so much that we stop connecting with actual humans too?
That's the real danger here. Are we trading empathy for privacy? If I send you a professional rewrite of my sadness, you don't get the emotional data either. You just get the sense of inadequacy. You don't know I actually need help. You just know I filed a polite report about my feelings.
We become safe, private, invisible, and completely robotic. We successfully trick the bots, but we trick each other in the process.
That might just be the ultimate trade-off of the AI age. To survive the machines, we might have to become a little bit more like them.
That is a very heavy thought to leave on. But it's something everyone needs to think about next time you're about to send a fiery text. And your phone helpful suggests, maybe say it like this instead.
It might protect your data, but at what cost to your relationships?
Exactly. Something for all of you to explore on your own. Keep learning, stay curious, and maybe double-check that friendly rewrite before you hit send. You might be hiding a lot more than you think. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.